Godējamie ministre, dāmas un kungi, esat sveicināti mūsu kārtējā
You are welcome to our
ārvalstu investoru
Foreign
vīdes indeksa
Investors
prezentācija.
or Investment
Un
Environment
šobrīd
Index presentation.
Ļoti daudz pārmaiņas notiek. Mēs zinām, ka mēs visi steidzamies.
There are
un šajā
so many
dienā,
changes. We
manuprāt,
know
tās
everyone
pārmaiņas
is
ir vēl
on a
lielākas. Un kā
hurry,
mēs
and
redzam,
we know there are
arī pēdējie
again to say so
notikumi,
many changes, developments
parāda,
ongoing
cik svarīgi
that are showing
mums
how
ir
important for us it is to be united regarding solving particular problems or problems in particular topic. And the previous environment index was waiting for the next political election, and now the election is gone. So currently the government has announced the economic transformation. And this transformation, or economy transformation, and this transformation is definitely linked to times of big opportunity, and it also gives us or bears with it lots of challenges. And that is, it's nothing new, the challenges. It's nothing we have not discussed previously in the context of our environment index. We have talked about labor, employment, the Green Deal, how we are going to implement the transformation. We talked about shadow economy combating, fair competition, education, and all the other matters. And of course, none of these matters can be solved without a strong partner to the business, that is public sector. And that is why surveying this year businesses, we drew attention a lot to state administration. Everything you will see, and also this is how communication with the public sector of the private sector has improved significantly. And in my opinion, that is indeed this first step in order for the further transformation to happen. And the transformation there is for all the plans that we have nurtured and everything that was expressed as our objectives to be realized. So today, I am inviting all of us to participate, because part of the colleagues are probably not going to be able to stay for the whole discussion. And today we would like to speak about how we have done, how well, and whether the results of the index can only be linked to some external factors, or there are an array of factors which we can internally do in order for the transformation to be smoother. So I wish you fruitful discussions today. And where is Jānis? Jānis is going to... He's going to be the host, the moderator, the host of the event in the morning, of the morning event. Wanted to say event this night, tonight, but no, it's the morning. Indeed, very briefly, I will now announce the participants of the discussions, because at least part of them, because also the whole audience is participating in the discussion. So now, the trio of the coalition, Arvils Ašerādens, the minister, so Māris Sprindžuks and Ilze Indriksone, so Minister of Finance, Minister of Economy, and Minister of Environmental Protection and Regional Development. Accordingly, Mr. Čuda, Arvils Ašerādens, is going to go to other events. At some point from 11:30 to 12. So, well, if you want to manage to ask any questions, please do so. And on the other hand, we have another responsible, Riga City Council, largest fraction, which is mayor without the party, PAR and Progressive parties. This is Mārtiņš Kosovičs, Riga City Council deputy. And then there are two people who are not politicians. But in the context of state administration, the Sentiment Index now, they are invited very much. This is Jānis Citskovskis, director of the State Chancellery of the Republic of Latvia, and a person analyzing what is going on and what is not going on in the state administration is Inga Vilka, member of the State Audit Council of the Republic of Latvia. Now, FICIL nominated, drafted, how to even say, well, they're going to give their own view about the businesses. Now, second, third, fourth rows are actually involved, and without any further introduction, the format is already familiar. First, the presentation about the survey, and then open forum discussions, presentations. Author, Arnis Sauka. Thank you, Jānis. Thank you. This is the 8th time consecutively when I am presenting about the major foreign investors are telling what they are telling about the environment or sentiment in Latvia, and this is important not only for them but also to the local community and companies. And I'm just reminding that the opinion of foreign investors is important because the 1/8 of the companies registered in Latvia is in accordance with, so they comply with the definition of foreign investors. Once again, this is who we surveyed, 54, and last year it was similar. And I think that these brands are actually speaking for themselves. These are the companies we have invited to listen to, and also in the previous years. I see and I understand that several people are busy for also other things to do, but now I'm just going to run through and maybe also do some quotes very briefly. The report is large, and however the conclusions are one thing. I have to start the morning with some negative thing is about investment climate, whether it has improved or not, attraction. So it's 2.3 is the mark on the scale of 5 being maximum. So investors have said, but well, let's see if in the discussion it's going to reflect like that or not. But they say that during the interviews, it looked more positive. However, now they would actually evaluate it lower than 2.3. Only 1 year when we began in 2016, it was a worse mark. All the other years, this evaluation was higher. And also last year, the investor, it seemed like, well, it was election and there was a lot of promises, and maybe it was just a more positive outlook to life. And yes, the geopolitics in Latvia, but in essence, what we see, what they quote, what they say is there are so many things that have been discussed. Unfortunately, nothing has been done. And if I may, quote a little bit, just it's an average chaos, so to say, or mild chaos actually going on. We don't know where the ship is steering. And there are so many questions. Unfortunately, nobody is solving. And the investors were actually expecting it to be done more. Also, the policymakers and their work, evaluation, 2.7, it's not 3. And one thing we looked at where the progress is and where is the regress, where there has been no progress, is basically the business environment, investment environment. This is the demographics. I mean, it's not a surprise, but the availability of employment and foreign investors don't see a lot of progress there. Healthcare system and some things that are not okay there, but we see also some fields where there is progress. Well, this is basically the slide which we can simply conclude, just very basic or overall conclusions. Some of the things that have been said, one slide, keywords, migration, employment, labor, and so many things, what is done. This is said by investors. Corporate management principle, compliance in state capital companies, 2.9. Then corporate management principles in municipality capital companies, 2.6. It's lower. And what does it mean? It means, and there are examples from the foreign investors. I will not say because there are also other people who will be talking. Well, there are good marks, good evaluations. There are going to be good corporate management examples mentioned by the businesses, but there are lots of things negative, and I think that in this discussion we're going to hear about them. State sector efficiency regarding proactive solution of challenges faced by Latvia currently. So not only investment environment, but again, in general, this solutions. 2.4, not a rather high evaluation. So unfortunately, also here, the investors are indicating that we are well aware in what kind of times we live, but they want to be able to quicker for the problems to be solved and solutions found. We do not see a good progress there. Cooperation with the public sector, a little bit better, but also from the quotes we see, we meet, we talk, but so many things that are not present. So there is no cooperation among the ministries, efficiency as such should be increased, competency level should be increased, and one thing is the communication, but the other is what in the end is expected. And finally, one of my last slides is the priorities in the reform. So the state management efficiency or state administration efficiency as one of the aspects is very quickly, I will just, sorry, but I will look at a little bit. Just a couple of quotes. They said there are so many people involved, somebody should be responsible. That was the investors what said. Feedback, public sector, skills improvements as such, then state sector should not be doing the functions, fulfilling the functions that can be done by the private sector. Digitalization, then purposeful digitalization, there should be databases, I mean common databases, that and interconnection. We have Eveslība, Latvia, etc., but they have no interconnection, and the investors are indicating that the necessity of digitalizing the state administration is necessary in order to save the resources and make it more friendly. Yes, I see also the ministers even nodding. Energy independence, facilitating Green Deal, hopes on new ministries, and finally education system improvement. We need to improve human resources for the people to be more qualitative. It's not a lot of us, so let us be better qualitative. So state support to the innovations, that is maybe to the Ministry of Economy. Well, Latvia is the worst in the Baltic states, and this is once again this is also being now solved down the street, basically, or on the go. So where are we? Where are we? This is the horizontal management, as was mentioned, and there's something that was said by me, some of the quotes, that here we are. We are between geopolitics and state efficient management from various perspectives. And in one or another way, the discussion we will have, and regarding the interviews, I see that the worse is the geopolitical situation, the more there are questions about the infrastructure related to the competitiveness of this country, the more efficient actually the state administration must be or expected. And that is all from my part as someone who has summarized it all. Now I'm giving floor to Jānis Domburs to host them, to moderate a further discussion. Thank you very much. I'm going to take the clicker or the remote from you, and once again, the first speaker, he has said, sit down, it's two. Meaning, Mark, it's like the teachers say. They say, politicians, please sit down, it's two. That is your mark. Ms. Indriksona is participating for the longest time now in such discussions. What do you so? I mean, why two, really, and why? And nobody has noticed something? I think that the sentiment does not equal with what we have done. I think that it has been the increased expectations, and state administration in general has not fulfilled their function starting to work more efficiently. And this is why it seems like the businesses are let down, and they feel disappointed because so quickly the processes do not happen. But at the same time, we're talking about 12 months. Well, in general, I mean, the last government, new government, or pre-election time, you also mentioned very well. You see, there are such major decisions that are actually being postponed, but the new decisions are not made, and you say 2 point something, maybe even less would be now, or it would be worse. I cannot agree. There are initiatives we have begun, and the climate initiatives and the investment environment. It is a complex solution. We are indeed working towards this practical action plan for economics transformation, and this is on the side of the whole community we're going to speak about the plans, but let us go through the evaluation as such. Mr. Ašarādens, how about sit down 2.3? The Minister of Economics is more optimistic. Thank you to the researchers, and the data is important to us indeed. They're talking about something very important. This is Arvids Ašarādens, Minister of Finance. And, well, I would like to interpret this 2.3 because I did not participate in the survey. Crisis, external some factors. It sheds the light on something that has accrued over time, and just not solving several things that the community expects it to be solved quicker. Also, debates before the election, it said, well, I mean, it's indicated that the people want changes to be quicker and something to be solved. But is it only in the public sector? Definitely not. There are definitely public sector is only responsible for part of it. And what we see currently is a huge conflict between efficiency or performance and how the problems should be solved. And partially that is part of the answer. Mr. Kosovic, Riga City Council deputy, well, one more 12 months, and what are you going to say? 2.3, that's such evaluation. From the Riga perspective, we can look at maybe a little bit differently. Our election cycle is different. Our elections were 2.5 years ago. What about this time when we took it was not only two, but capital company management, public sector influence on, I mean, what is there to hide? Political level influencing in various capital companies of the municipality. I think the voter.
Man šķiet, ka pirms 2 gadiem tā atzīme bija zemāka par 2, jo vara mainījās. Kas izdevies panākt, tas varbūt vēlētos vēlāk pastāstīt.
I wanted to say maybe later what we have actually managed to do. In my opinion, where the hope is, 2 years ago, the government, although it was not much different, then it was difficult for us because there was inertia. Seemingly, Riga seemed like a country in the country, so state in state. Even though the political power changed, and we remember the development plan being blocked from the part of the government, but now this little plus is that at least in the dialogue, we see some positive. Well, let us stay there. Let us say that level plus with 2.3.
Entrepreneurs, what do you say about answers you heard from the politicians? And so let us use the presence of Mrs. Indriksson because it's not gonna be long. So, how do you assess what you heard, Mr. Sauka? Did you receive adequate answers to what you said? Yes, I heard that you said it seems, or for me it seems so. Each minister, of course, is a person. If there is no analytical data, this is subjective, because if we start talking with nice phrases, we actually need to first admit that there is a problem. And there have been quite a few numbers, not only this one, and other numbers also don't speak in benefit, so in favor. So there is something wrong. Yes, let's continue. Yeah, I would agree that there is something wrong. I can also see that there could be faster, more effective ways that would improve the investment climate. But the public administration consists of many institutions, and I would say that this horizontal cooperation has improved, but it's not last 12 months. I can see that in the new government it is better. There is better cooperation between ministries, but we are still spending a lot of resources to improve it. We are meeting at various levels, starting from the political level till also public officials, and we meet face to face to solve those issues. We also have a good cooperation with the Ministry of Environmental issues and also the Ministry of Economics, but this is good news. But in order to improve the climate of investment and also the attractiveness, the sentiments have to be changed, and it doesn't happen in one day. So the fact that we have improved cooperation hasn't gone to entrepreneurs, decisions haven't been made. Do you agree that it hasn't gone towards you? Who agrees, who not? But decisions haven't been made. We are trying to remove the red tape from these old properties and so on. We are, for example, reducing the requirements for cadastral measurements and so on, but the process is happening, but still a lot to do. Mr. Sauka has nothing to say. Okay, she can talk. Please. Yes. Okay. They will switch on the sound. I would like to ask to Mrs. Indriksson about our hopes towards availability of labor, because this is a critical issue already for several years. And it seemed cool that the Ministry of Economics have taken the central role in solving those issues. But at the same time, we cannot wait. This is not like 2-year plans that we can prepare for them 2 years and then 5 years to implement. Here we see that it's both short-term issue related to labor availability and also long-term about development of labor in total. Right now I can say that in May we will already have a first draft of human capital development strategies. We are sharing issues related to human capital between 3 ministries, and we have also submitted to the State Chancellery a document that plans to have a working group that works at the level of the state's chancellery. So we have decided, and very soon will be consolidated the training commission, so that everything can be seen and there are no some interruptions. And also we are planning to requalify, to increase qualification for population. Also we work both for short term and long term, because for example, 95,000 employees with general secondary education will be at risk zone, unemployed probably in a few years. So we have this resource, 95,000. Okay, but let us look at the government declaration. There is some sentences about this strategy, that we will support attraction of highly qualified and professionally prepared labor force. So what is the definition? The definition, what does it mean? The qualification, highly qualified. I think we didn't leave the word highly qualified. So qualified, it means a specialist who is not just a laborer, so some assistant in seasonal works, but this is a person with qualification and skills. And this is also area in which we've been working. We met also the Minister of Interior, and we are trying to understand what has to be changed in the legislation to facilitate both responsibilities and also welcoming the employees and responsibilities for them. But looking at criteria, we understood that the regulation is good, but it doesn't work. So the Office of Citizenship and Migration Affairs now is trying to understand where is the problem, why it's not possible to do through 30 days, but it takes 6 months. Okay, the last question to Mrs. Indriksone. The first row, no. Third row, anyone would like to ask anything to Mrs. Indriksone while she's still here? Jānis Čaktiņš, International Chamber of Commerce, Ukrainian representative in Latvia, but I'm interested about Latvia. So we have the Ministry of Energy, Climate and Energy Ministry, and the Ministry of Economics still owns the energy distribution networks, and the high voltage networks belong to which ministry? To the Climate Ministry. Okay, but it was a question. So when and how it will be under the Ministry of Energy, that it's not that there is a group of responsible people, but one responsible person. So the short answer about the climate and energy policy, about those issues is the Ministry of Climate responsible. Also the state capital companies, they are separated from this. So we are looking at this energy company, Latvenergo, and how administratively it's going to do, but this is not a priority. These administrative changes are not priority. Our priority is energy independency. So we very closely cooperate with the Climate and Energy Ministry and also with our electric energy company, Latvenergo, to work towards developing hydrogen technologies. Okay, so this Chuda, who is the parliamentary secretary, will replace the minister, and he is working not only for the first government. For example, last week he said some speculations how many labor force we need to import to be like other Baltic states, and also that some other interesting ideas was expressed by him. But okay, let's involve other speakers. Mr. Springer, so you've been having power last 5 months, and so what do you say about this sentiment that we failed, that we are not doing well? I believe that this is objective. This is as it is, and we have to understand that all of us have to move towards one direction, so that we not only talk about right things or do some right things in the wrong way. I believe that we have succeeded, if we have tried to do something right, but somehow we don't go together. So in order to gain the pace, we need to agree on a joint direction and move forward as a team. So right now, it's been fourth month for me. I would like to have and see everything going faster. I have my own vision, and it seems that the government is still on the momentum with agenda, but I lack a strategic strategy, strategic ideas, what has to be done to use benefits of this time, how to kind of untie hands for businesses and how to coordinate and how to agree on right things, because I don't see the right form, because the government meeting or this cooperation council is not the right one. So we are lacking the right format. Is it the problem? Yes, I would say we need time and place to brainstorm and to understand to the right or to the left. Okay, questions? My name is Vensazes. In FICIL, I am leading the modernization working group for public administration. So there could be a well-grounded question. So why foreign investors are interested in modernization and reform of the state administration? We in FICIL look at two ways. So first, it directly impacts the environment of entrepreneurship, these all policies, and also the quality of services received by the state and also by municipalities. Therefore, we ask those questions. And I liked Mr. Springjuk's honesty and also openness that we just heard from the Minister of Economics, that having the strategy for human capital will be like a silver bullet, and we will have certain goals, and the ministry, you can trace in a ministry who is responsible for what. But actually, we heard from Mr. Sauka reports and also other places that the problem is taking responsibility and coordination, and also naming one specific person responsible for something. So continuing what was asked by Mr. Dombor, so what would change if we have this working group on human capital? So what has to be changed, or what can change in the format of taking responsibility? Because right now, foreign investors don't feel that something has changed. Nobody is kind of taking responsibility. And returning back to those introduction and debates, I believe that this 2.3 is actually a very good result looking in the future, and right now this result would be even weaker. And I see that the new government is not delighting us what we are expecting and what investors are expecting. We don't see the results. Yeah, Mr. Sprinjuk, that was a question to you. So just before this meeting, I went to Mr. Tsitskovskis and I said, maybe tomorrow we don't look at this plan of modernization of public administration because I don't like it. Why? Because it lacks two things. There is not link to digitalization and modernization of the state administration reform. I see clear and direct link. And second, we need to rearrange the planning and the state policy so that it can be seen also from the regional angle, because otherwise the ministries in their bubbles do what they want. And this is a fundamental reform, not institutional, but the way how we plan and how we cooperate between various ministries to see the impact of policies in the region. Did you agree with Mr. Tsitskovskis? No, not till then. We needed to send it in the Brussels it already yesterday. But what I see that this government is good in a way that we can go to each other and say that something is wrong. But unfortunately, what needed to be done yesterday, I cannot do today, because this state administration ministry is actually Ministry of Environmental Protection, and planning is also the competence of the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development, not for the State Chancellery, because I really don't see in this old model where each horse is going to their own direction how to get it all together. Okay, let's give floor to Mr. Tsitskovs. So you are already for several years, for many years, in the State Chancellery, and this modernization project is your responsibility, in your hands, and it is criticized. So what do you say about 2.3 and also efficiency? 2.3. This is a sentiment index, and this is a depression after elections, because there were high hopes, and not elections automatically solve those things. I see many are smiling, but we need to work very hard to be able to get to better results. And right now the result is bad. If we talk about the modernization plan, during last year we have worked together with all the partners to put on the table for governments a modernization plan of the state administration. And we are not planning and hoping to put everything in one plan, because often it is like that let's put everything so that everybody is included. But the question is, what do we really want to achieve? So therefore the plan was targeted several issues raised by ministers, for example, the story of services, the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development, they have this responsibility. Then also regional policy, where also Ministry of Environmental works with digital issues, and there are some things which we do not need to rewrite. But let us focus on those issues where there are no solutions. Let's focus on 2-3 priorities where we can achieve results. Yes, but Mr. Frinjux is against it. I will give one example. So administrative burden. Why our businesses are struggling, why people don't want to be entrepreneurs? Because as soon as you start business, you have to receive so many permissions and very often some things. But who designs and drafts some legislation? It's not the State Revenue Service. Those are ministries. So in order to provide a friendly and convenient service, we have to simplify. But the State Revenue Service cannot do this. State Revenue Service are executing what's written. So we, all ministries, have to work together, and our homework has to be that we have to reduce this administrative burden. We have worked for 30 years to create various documents. So this reform has to start from the top, from ministries. We have to understand what is not needed and then continue. It cannot be done from the other side. Yes, the reduction of administrative burden, this modernization plan also deals with it. It is one of the tasks. We have started working on this issue with our cooperation partners. So we get together the representatives of the industry, also FICIL. We try to identify the main areas which put hurdles for us and which makes it difficult. We try to understand what are the barriers, practical legislation, and we go to the approach that we exchange data between ourselves, because very often data are not exchanged. People are trying to kind of keep their data for themselves, not to share. So we are trying to have one-stop agency where we submit data and that have data, and then all can be done. But as soon as data was mentioned, Mrs. Zalita was already ready to speak. So I would like to return to this modernization plan. I will be not very popular, but it seems that we have read two different documents. But because what I read in this modernization plan, this is just bureaucratic sentences where we have joined together wishes of all the institutions, and we are saying that everything is priority, and if everything is priority, nothing is priority. There is 5 times much more than we would need, and it's not said what we will do it. It's not clear what we will measure. Of course, there are some KPIs, but 80% of these KPIs do not bring to the result. They provide process measurements, but nobody is asking why do we need to do this. So the plan is good to send to Brussels, but this is not a working document for us to improve. I would disagree. There are specific, measurable, tangible measurements. Probably we have read two different plans. Yeah, it seems so, because I was seeing automate a process to join together 2 databases or something. If you look at the area where your company works, there are measurable these indicators, and we will also discuss with the state secretaries of all ministries, and we will ask who is the head of the ministry, accountant or the state secretary. It's going to be my question when we discuss. So we will discuss about centralization of accountancy function, because when I receive reports from all the ministries, nobody is supporting it, and this is reality. Yes, we have debate also with public treasury, the state treasury, and they say that they don't have authority to define one united methodology, which is binding for all state secretaries. Let's wait till Thursday's meeting. Okay, now Mrs. Wilka, she could listen. We have heard about various plans. So you should act as a judge, or you should also speak. So what is your vision at this? Thank you for this question. In the beginning, I would comment the result, and I would say that it was not surprising, because all our audits end up with our conclusion that there is no cooperation between the state institutions, also between ministries, also about state institutions. For example, the State Environmental Service is unable to cooperate with State Meteorological Center. Also, if we look at this united and joint accountancy, we see that in the State Treasury, one department is unable to cooperate with other departments. Also, the state with municipalities unable to cooperate. And when I was coming here, I was like, let's try to be optimistic. Let's not be too pessimistic, because we are feeling like that we are just going rounds and rounds, and we are writing in the plans that we need cooperation, but we do nothing. But we need to come to holding accountable. So I will use the term accountability to understand at which level it is. And when we are talking about the previous state administration reform, then those measures which were aimed at accountability, KPIs related to the highest persons of the institutions, it wasn't done. And also for cooperation, there was planned to have the project management teams, but that was also placed aside. So talking about various documents, let us remember that we cannot approach these documents formally. So like it was said, because environment, the situation is changing rapidly, and we have to be prepared so that this document is alive, and that we see what are the rules of the game. Like if we look at this previous one, we are like, oh, we are not going to do this, and many just don't know about these regulations, and it also fosters this culture that it is not important. The plan is, but we could not implement it. So let us for once try to start doing something. And also we are more and more demanding to increase this accountability. We want our community to be more demanding, and we are also asking to inform the community much more.
Let me clarify, what does that mean, just to get together? Mr. Asharadens is listening, and it seems like then Vienotība is the one who did not get it all together. Well, I mean, you can say so. You can say so. On this background, what can you say about this? State administration efficiency increasing. Is it good for Brussels? Is it good for Riga? I think the problem is that we are trying to solve all the complex matters of state administration in one TV show. This all actually requires a deep, long conversation. We just go through very quickly and running further. And the amount of problems actually accrues. I'm looking at the four problems to have a structure to this conversation. Indeed, that is very good that the state administration is thinking about it. The state plan is, and what we see, I see, is three fundamental problems. The first one, linked to digitalization, that is one thing the minister has begun working. I see good things happening. We have committee first meeting. We are finally talking about the digital administration as one single process. Other countries have it. We have gone different path, Latvian path, and we have fragmented this, but we are now maybe even like we can start talking about the structure of the flow of the information with one login, with unified, etc. But from the state administration point of view, that in order for it to be realized is the automation. In state administration, there are so many people actually gathering some kind of paperwork and putting into folders, and the more, well, it all can be automated. The other thing, and that is missing, and I'm afraid that the new reform paper is actually, well, not giving us anything good, is that the capacity is missing. And the single remuneration system is not solving us. We need, or regional or world-class level experts, energy, education, health. One thing, so from the Ministry of Finance, I need analytics sitting against me, talking, saying, how are we solving these problems? And then we go further. We can identify the problem now, but to find the solutions, that is one large problem. And the third thing is the high-level also question, and I want to address. We have worked through NAPs, different plans, and it seems like the complexity that is existing now in the world, in the change of, in the dynamics of the change, it seems that we need to lose this exercise. I mean, whenever we need to solve the problem, we are trying the foresight, energy, demographics, anything, and we are joining all the knowledge locally, internationally. We make a decision how we do. It's not a lot, so meaning it's not just we all solve everything complex, one thing, another, and then in very short amount of time we do it, and we do it until the end. So we solve. And sorry, let me finish. I mean, everybody wants to talk. Yes, energy. It's true. Energy is basically also the driver of inflation in the energy sector. What is Baltic deficit? Unfortunately, our energy is more expensive. Now there is movement in order to regulate this. Also, desynchronizing proceedings or processes have begun. And I hope that that the ministry is going to get a swing. And I think that in education, the higher education institution consolidation has begun. Riga Technical University is ahead of the game with their involvement, desire to do the things. We see that in the technology field, it's very, very hard progress in the education field in general, but we see that it's solved as program funding, allowing for each school to show why they're existing, what is their economic feasibility. So I think this is a good, well, even though it's through the stumps, but it's a good example. About higher education, I think Mr. Sauka is going to say, but the energy, what about that? Is it similar to what you think? I would return to and say a little bit of comment a little bit. So we'll choose the opportunity to say once again, thank you for the state control, for this joint work, and very important that wasn't mentioned in the report about the previous modernization plan. It's black on white. It says the political will that is missing. The plan, Mr. Tsitskovskis, he's probably not going to come and say, you know what, my institution has prepared the worst plan that is possible, but let us see what happens. It is clear that a lot of initiatives that in essence are even then to say rather okay, rather good, they stop at the thrust, the political thrust and lack thereof. So in order to create one, for example, central database for state administration institutions, as Mr. Tsitskovsky says, for them to share, and about the accountability that was mentioned by the state control, we, the investors, among ourselves, we're not policymakers, but as an example, if we're talking about deliverables and goals, the Ministry of Finance, as the ministry responsible for the budget, fulfillment of the budget, they couldn't be the Olympic champion and direct this resultative, the change concept of resultative indicators. I know that the Ministry of Finance, for example, is active and they are thinking about this, but the plan could be the best plan in the world. If, however, it is not linked directly to the political agenda goals, then it is left there on the paper. And what I hear, replying to the comment of Mr. Domburs, in some marginal issues, this understanding starts to form, but not until the end yet. Political trust and Minister of Finance, the replica? Mr. Ashradens? Well, there are two approaches. We can say that political trust is missing, yes, and it's not wrong. It's one of the ways how to describe it. However, also the cooperation, and especially with the Scandinavian ministries also, and in the Finnish education system, they don't even care if there's a minister even. The ministry solves all and every issues and questions very well. Previously, I worked in education, well, how to say, Education and Science Commission, cadence, during the cadence. So when we talked about how to solve things, there was a State Secretary of Ministry of Education from Estonia. It was close to Tartu. Well, I had an opportunity to go there and actually discuss and solve everything. The ministries have to be able to solve their own fundamental problems. The policies have to be defined. The politician comes, they say, we're changing the course, but not 180, not 360 degrees, I don't know, 320 degrees, but we're saying, we have to fine-tune this a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right in one thing or another. Mr. Ashradens, I think somebody wants to argue with you. Yes, I agree that both these approaches can be feasible, but in the second approach, we actually come to the point when, with the existing capacity for state administration, the accountants, and they are actually the ones directing the policy. I mean, well, Ministry of Finance here has changed the approach, and state treasury, for example, works with automation, and I think we need to be thinking spatially, joining also. Many countries are doing this. Yeah, that is one thing. Mr. Sprinjuks, Some speakers have already mentioned that in the context of digitalization is what we understood that is the most important is to separate policy planning from introduction. And for policy planners, they need to be then responsible for the results. So it's not the institution accountability, but this is the whole policy accountability. So the ministers are giving the task: reduce bureaucracy, more responsible environment, or business environment, or investment environment. If you're saying this politically, then be as the institution, subordinate institution, what they have done, because they cannot do it, whatever the money is there, if the policy doesn't change. So here, very important it is to say that the government creates this brainstorm exercise group. What are we doing? And we are doing it all together, all the ministries. And it can be like it should be like a horizontal project. And then each of the homes there, each of the houses and groups there are trying to adopt. And if we are setting the vectors correctly, then it doesn't matter which ministry it is just driving on the track. They know it themselves. I mean, I will repeat, we're not doing the correct things. We are doing the incorrect things correctly. We're going into three directions, and this is why we're not actually even moving. This is... We're currently talking about this harness in three ways. Yes, I am a municipality politician, but I just don't want to agree to the fact that this political setting and activity that it doesn't make any sense or result. As a politician of municipal institution, I think that us, the politicians, we need to be those who are creating these unique cooperation environments and spaces. What about the political environment? I mean, 15, 20 years, we are talking about how income tax is being split, divided for the municipalities, not only to make them places where people sleep, but active attraction points of labor, of employment. And we hope that this question is going to be solved, and we need political courage, decisiveness, where we say that, and we see that the municipalities need to be attracting as investment and employment. And in the ministries, for example, to say we understand that the investments go and set in the municipalities. Why couldn't you just sit at one table, the municipality and the country and state, and just in one housing solve the problems? Not just show this is, for example, the state responsibility, this is the municipality. If arrives an employee, we tell them, okay, here's the kindergarten, this is the school, etc. But no, we're actually showing them where is state revenue service. Say declaration, have you forgotten? No, I mean, I want to ask you, 35, let us promote municipality interest in the development of their municipality, especially, and also in the labor market development. I mean, have we felt it in Riga? Well, I mean, on backstage we have. Mr. Sprinčuks, thank you very much for cancelling Riga blockade plan, so to say. I think this was just out of envy politically. We can even admit this, that was created. But on backstage we have already agreed with the Prime Minister and also with Ašarādens, with Mr. Ašarādens, that now in spring we are getting to work with related to that the municipalities are not turning into. So the richest municipalities are those. We don't want the richest municipalities to be those where most people sleep, but where most people work. And also the equalizing activities. So most economically active municipalities should not give the funding to the municipalities, which we're basically feeding them. I mean, it's not bad per se, but we just want to see where the money goes and where the other municipality can actually spend it without any ambitions. Okay, we found out very much what is going on backstage, but I will just, Mr. Asheran, it's very short. I mean, no, it's not on the backstage. It was publicly available. There was all the meetings, etc. But Mr. Kozovic, typical problem he highlighted. It is clear the politicians can agree on how it should be done. And the first question, and I asked, Riga city bureaucracy, can they give some data and modeling, how would money flow change? Silence, no signal. Nobody's actually calculating it, what you're saying. I mean, and I'm sorry. Yes, we need meetings, respectively. The problem is that if the institution itself has no capacity to say, if we change this would change, and that would change, and we would solve these and those questions and issues, well, if it were so, everything would be fine. The ministry have already written the project. We're going to present, and as soon as we get there during the next month, so the material is present. Anyways, we need the people and organizations modeling, trying to understand what is going to happen with that. So in Riga there is no capacity? No, we're not talking only about Riga. This is actually about many municipalities. It's not going to only be Riga question. There are municipalities where, again, people are just going there, and for many municipalities, they will lose a lot of funding. Mr. Spring, this is a centralized question because the municipalities really, they shouldn't be just places where people sleep. They need these carrots. There are 43 municipalities. Again, there are too many of them for the ministry to be able to speak to each and every one. We need a platform of cooperation among the regions and the government. It is collection of the data, statistical data, in order to measure at least how it would be modeling, for example, labor market, what would be the impact on the income tax, what's going on in Liepāja, Valmiera, elsewhere, Liepāja municipality. In the ministry, you cannot do it now. The problem is even worse. The regional reform was incorrect in relation to large cities. They actually split them from this municipality in the large scale, but this is one system. People go there for medicine, for culture, and this is just, these are islands. I mean, I'm sorry, but the previous government and previous minister, I need to blame them. It's not the municipalities, Gārkalni, Ādaža, but it's the large cities, actually. It is the large cities' story is wrong. It can only be solved with data. And I don't think it's 43 data. We're creating the regional perspective on the municipalities which there are and the regional conversations, because in Latgale there are one problems, in Vidzeme other. I mean, let me allow to actually businesses. Evita Gosha, within FICIL I am also leading shadow economy combating work task force. My question about, well, you know, I have deja vu feeling that yesterday I asked questions about the same thing. Now other people, but in essence nothing has changed. Doesn't matter if we like Professor Sauka or Professor Schneider's research, the economy in Latvia still, so shadow economy still is more than 20% of GDP. Mr. Asheradens already mentioned the planned tax changes and so on. My question is about, there are several task forces, they are evaluating, then also cash flow to reduce it, also tax and customs administration relations reform. FICIL is present there, but still there is a feeling what actually is the large objective of these reforms. What is the systemic vision? Where are we going? So that is the first question to Mr. Ašaradens, but of course also to others, other colleagues. So what is it where we're going? Not to speak in, particularly what are going to be the rates of taxes, but from the shadow economy perspective. It doesn't matter where we go with the ratios if, in the end, we are not even collecting those taxes anyways. 1/4, 1/5 is in the shadow. And the second question is, it is a very particular concrete question from the Ministry of Finance we have already heard, and of course also in life we have observations that indicate that until now, and there is no political will to systemically fight shadow economy. This is, well, this is what the investors think. The administrative mechanisms are being tweaked and adopted, but fundamentally the things are not being changed. For example, we have attempts to fight the cash turnover, but for the Ministry of Finance, we hear that on the political level it's being, challenged. What about these? Well, we have talked about so many initiatives, but as it goes to, for example, Parliament, but where it's being lost, we see this as a potential instrument and tool fundamental to give an opportunity for also Madame Jaunzema and her institution to be more efficiently in the combating of the shadow economy. So, yeah, thank you. Now, Mr. Ašaradens maybe, but I think that Mr. Čude is, as Ministry of Economy, should say something also.
Thank you. The shadow economy is a very important issue. It is on our agenda. Several things related to this. You were asking about this general aim or task. Then for each country, one of the indicators of efficiency is tax gap or tax gap. And I wouldn't say that nothing has changed up to date. So, for example, the VAT tax gap in context with average of Europe has improved, so the State Revenue Service has worked well. Next, what is a bit worse is envelope salaries, according to research. And next, it is also important to understand about data. What kind of data it is? Professor Sauka or Mr. Schneider? We are also crossing those data and also looked through the real data we receive from the market, and the real market shows that the potential amount of envelope salaries, so this is State Revenue Service calculations and also Financial Association calculations, it looks about 1 billion euros that come in our calculations and also cash withdrawal places. And we'll continue working with this further. I agree that the tactics have to be divided into two directions. First is general questions. They are not easy. They are politically complicated. For example, declaring income. A lot of people, 900,000, are already submitting income declarations, but the general declarations would have another mechanism that it's mandatory for you to submit and also sign that this is my only income. So let us see how politically we succeed and whether we do it. And that other thing, which is much more complicated, I don't say that this is a primary task, but it worked very well in Estonia, is the state health insurance. And it solved fastly this question. Everybody understood what has changed, and a lot of people changed their behavior, and the understanding that they have to participate in the state tax system and they have to pay their part in order to receive benefits. The third large question related to entrepreneurship is we haven't discussed structural issues. For example, could in Latvia operate companies that have negative self-capital? So it means that those companies would owe sooner or later somebody. So the partners, the state, somebody else, but from the bank aspect, he is not bankable. So there is no use to go there. So we are saying, let us finance them, but they don't have this equity. So how can you finance? So what about these answers? Were they acceptable? Okay, I will continue. There are a lot of other technical issues, construction, sub-companies, can there be 4 or 43? And this is where we get these shadows and a lot of things, and also digital solutions and so on. Shortly about this fighting against the shadow economy. So for 23, 25, so it's going to be in end of July. So 1 year has already passed. But now about the tax bill, tax invoice. So Mrs. Jaunzeme, so she could comment. Let's give the mic so everybody can hear it. Hello, thank you, Mrs. Gosha, for this question, because we invested 2 years in this process together with our partners, and the draft law went to our parliament, and now already for 1 month, one of the parties has asked not to review it, and the process is on hold. But I would say that in this draft is also notions related to effectiveness of control processes, not only about these tax invoices, tax bills, because and I would be happy if we see a movement of this draft law. Yeah, are ratings also included? Ratings were submitted in a different reading, and because I believe that ratings are one of the most important instruments. This is how we let others know and how we see how good is our partner in our cooperation. So that was approved by the parliament. Thank you to the parliament's members. Mr. Chutko, what do you say about the questions that were asked? So this discussion that we heard about digitalization and interinstitutional cooperation, I would like to highlight that decisions have to be based on data and also ability to exchange data between institutions and also make conclusions. We as policy makers for construction sector, I would like to remind about such a notion as electronic work time registration in construction objects, and that would help to make conclusions about the market players, because we know that construction sector is in this shadow economy. So registering these working hours would be a very good instrument for us to how to cooperate and how to improve. And recently we also saw in a system document about traceability of money in these sub-companies and for construction business, and that would help us to fight against those shadow economy and reduce this harmful climate in our economy. So, do you have anything else to say? I didn't hear an answer about this political force. So, which was the political force party that stopped this draft law in the parliament? Which one? United? Who can say? Nobody. Okay. Let us change a little bit topic. I would like about the administration and administration of the state capital companies. In Mr. Sauka presentation, so we can see it here. So corporate management principles and how they are in line with the state capital companies and also in municipal capital companies. And we can see these numbers 2.6 and other numbers. So now this is under the responsibility of Interinstitutional Coordination Center. Also the State Chancellery is looking at this issue. So from this side, we could hear answers: what is happening, what is not happening, and what should happen, what should be done. Good morning. Melnakste, Mrs. Melnakste, the Nasdaq Riga director. So the question why there should be the clear and good management of state capital companies. It is very easy to understand for each foreign and any foreign investor, and the answer is so that the company can develop. So the main problem is that there is no purposeful development. The state or the municipality has not motivated what are the goals that the specific company has to achieve. And there are some expectation letters that are circulating around. For example, in Riga municipality companies, also in some state companies, they are existent, but in others they don't exist. So if we have not stated clearly what we expect from these companies, then a very good example is about Alice in Wonderland, when she gets to crossroads and asks to the cat, where should I go? And cat is asking, where do you want to go? And she's like, I don't care. Then it doesn't matter which road you take. So this is our tragedy, that we are unable to define the way, the path this capital company has to take. This expectancy letter has to have a clear goals, sustainability goals, and when we as the shareholders have formulated what we want to achieve, we can also demand results. The fact that we don't have this development strategy means that these companies that belong to the state, they don't need extra new capital. Example, in Lithuania, Ignitis 1.5 billion and 2 years ago attracted 1.5 billion. In Estonia, Enefit Green 1.2 capitalization also attracted several hundreds of millions through the stock exchange. So the state has the control package and they attracted some money. And also Ignitis leader came to Riga and said that they are planning to invest 800 million in Riga, in Latvia. And therefore we also see that Enefit is developing rapidly in Latvia. But what are our companies doing? I should ask the shareholder. There is no clear development. So was it about the state capital companies or municipal? That was more about the state capital companies. And very often it is asked why we don't want, because we are afraid of those bad investors who would come and buy out everything. But example of Enefit, the large part belongs to ST Energy, to the state. 13% is owned by minority shareholders, Estonians, 60,000, and also pension funds. So they haven't had any takeover of assets by some unfavorable investors. And this is one issue that is already on the agenda for years. So before politicians answer, I would like to ask the vision of the state control and state auditing office and also the state chancellery. So do you agree? Do we have this vision? Is it clearly said what we need to do? Yes, if we talk about these crossroads, we have to understand that in each public public sector where the founder is the municipality or state, then we understand that this company doesn't work in the independent orbit. It has to fit in a specific policy. So it has to be defined in where and how it is operating. If the only goal is to get profits, to make profit, then it shouldn't be a state capital company. But if this company has other tasks to maintain some capital or something, then there has to be a very straightforward state policy. And when we do audits in these capital companies, we see that shareholders have a very kind of unclear understanding. Then also the council doesn't have, and also the board doesn't have clear vision. And then there is a situation before we have this letter of expectations, everyone have different expectations, and then there is this kind of fluctuation. Yeah, a normal situation has to be that the ministries determine the sectoral policy and the council sets the financial goals, and this is separate, but that would be a more harsh discussion about centralized management of state companies. But another topic is, the question was what, but other question is in what way? So how do we select the board and the council? This is very political, and it depends on understanding of each individual minister and their understanding what is administration. And ministries are sometimes interrupting and getting into those processes, and therefore those councils are confused. So, Mr. Cinskovskis, the Interinstitutional Coordination Center is responsible, and how do you accept this criticism? So, the direction to which develop related to administration of state capital companies, they are defined. The Interinstitutional Coordination Center submitted a report about the future development. We see also in the government declaration there are several directions, and we have common understanding. And I will divide this question into two parts. So one is that we already now have within the existing regulation have to ensure implementation. So these expectation letters have to be sent to the shareholders, and also the principles of good management have to be in line. So in line with the selections of members and other. But if we don't have this integrity notion and everybody have their own system of values, then it is very hard to break this culture. So who is lacking integrity? Where do we see it? Let us see one or another public case, very loud case, where the community is asking questions. Was everything done according to the best values and standards? But this is in a person who was appointed within the existing good administration system and model. I'm not saying that everything is bad. That we are developing. We can see that those good corporate management principles are working. The role of councils, they have to be strong. They have to be able to define and supervise properly the operation of these companies. This is one aspect. And second, if we talk about the stock exchange and attraction of capital, we need a political decision. And before there is a unity among the partners, there is no decision like this. Okay, we will leave this for those to answer. Yes, I would like to protect Jānis a little bit from the point of view that I also consider that there has to be a political choice, because Interinstitutional Coordination Center, wherever it is, if they don't have authority to manage, and this authorities is for ministries as shareholders or holders of shares. And also the ministers sometimes have 14 capital companies, and they are holders of these capital shares, and so they are unable to do it. How to do it? In other countries, there are sovereign wealth foundations. There is a centralized system that is managing all the public companies. And then there is this conflict of interest between policy making and holding this capital shares. And what about this tries of politicians say? So the list of United members, they were against. So now I had to appoint to Ventspils Freeport a representative. Today I still have the representative from the previous government, but I needed to think who is the person to send there and what we expect. I still have no answer. After long efforts, I found best people, and I would like to appoint them, but politically I see that the tradition is that the manager of the office usually are appointed loyal people. They have no understanding. They are not driver's sons, but just a minister appoints somebody who he trusts, and they have no idea whether they have understanding or don't have understanding. So I believe that here we need a centralized notion, what we expect from these public companies, how we attract some more private money. For example, me as a taxpayer, I would be happy to invest my free money in this state public companies, not in maybe in other. So we have to link together this investment with those transparent things that is in our country, whether we are doing better or worse, and we know why. So we would focus our resources around the challenges. So Green Deal, climate, and aging of society, social care, we have a lot to invest.
Thank you, other politicians, what they're saying. Yes, Mr. Zjute. With the mentioned examples, I think this is one of the very few companies the securities are issued in Nasdaq, so attraction of investment is okay. Only the limitation of the projects. This is once again decision-making of our politics about permissions where we can develop in Latvenergo field green projects, energy projects. If we were in the market, if it can be part of this very valuable property and we would be able to invest in it, it would be a good perspective, but maybe also would be some kind of a feeling of belonging. But Mr. Sprinčiks also illustrated that it was someone from the office usually. So we are also expecting active policy making. It's not possible to form active politics if you have attracted the specialists with whom you're not in your everyday life in the office. If we are expecting responsibility, then our representative, for example, in Ventspils Port, he is advisor of the minister. He has experience experience in these questions, and these are going to be future challenges for offshore wind farms. We need a political mandate who is going to direct it. Is there evaluation about this? I absolutely agree to the fact that on the ministry level, the policy has to be formed and created. The policy is made there. It's definitely true. And this is why there are goals of the ministries which the businesses has to reach, and then the council and the management board does realize. People in the ministries are not the ones to execute, meaning reach these objectives. I mean, the Latvenergo doesn't, I don't know if they even need capital. We're talking about new development project. Enefit Green is not Latvenergo, and this is not ST Energy, it is Green Energy Company, which we know we need to develop very quickly in this direction if we do not want it to all be just Lithuanian and Estonian companies and all the results only linked with them. Latvijas valsts meži, Latvenergo joint company potentially could be such analog, which could definitely be on the exchange. We have several very large problems. First of all, and today we're not discussing this, the capital market. Unfortunately, because of the capital, we're even sub-Saharan countries, just hygiene. The investors, they do not see our country. This is one of the things we need to solve. And in this regard, Ministry of Finance, latest in May, I hope that we will have the report where many things will be included, we will be putting on the table regarding the state capital companies. Well, and this is one thing, and in the discussion it's not even clear, but who needs them to fulfill some kind of a social role, or state capital company is the company with, they need to be working on a particular ratio. This is what I see from the Ministry of Finance. Several billion have been invested, and it needs to have some kind of a yield, whatever the field size there is. So the second thing, no, it's not true that we do not need capital. The energy prices are higher in our region. We need to develop it very quickly because we do not have the capacity, the energy capacity. It's clear that the green energy projects is very important, but there are many other solutions. For example, large construction in Latvia is actually going down. We need to, with large capital, just capacity building in the... Mr. Chuda is waving hands during your speaking, but not the capital is the problem. They have the problem to get the projects where to invest the capital in our country. Because everywhere there are so many aspects, we cannot harmonize, we cannot get the public and private sector. But what are the Estonians eating then if they have? But what do they have? I mean, the last harmonization is already on the way for them. It's clear. It's clear your opinion. Now, Mr. Kosovic, maybe 2.6 on Riga capitals. Companies. Well, 2.5 years ago in Riga, the situation was harsh, very bad. My subjective evaluation is that we have good improvements. And if I may, I will mention 3 main points. First of all, in my opinion, Riga, well, in large contrast to, I'm not talking about the government's maybe work, but what has been Riga management board, council selection, we are involving non-governmental sector, and currently there is suspicion, or there's a little suspicion that this process as for these 15, 13 capital companies, this is very transparent. Now the rules are very transparent. You will not find any political, public... There will not going to be drivers or just relatives of someone working in these management boards and councils. Now, Council of Latvijas Valsts Meži, there was a person working with criminal proceedings initiated against him. From the 15 capital companies, we now have 13. They have their strategic goals. What we do not have now until the end, because we heard if we have or not these letters of expectations. For significant capital companies, we have done this already, and I want to illustrate why, but very shortly, Mr. Kosovic. So, for example, Rigas Meži or Riga Forest, they were participant of the market in timber, this all processing, but we said that they need to service CO2 needs and city relaxation. So recreation part. This is why we are selling the this sowing plant or processing part. But is it that good as Mr. Kosovic says? Really in Riga? And it's getting better. But okay, it's getting better. However, just talking about capital company management, I want to remind one proposal in all revisions. We are reminding it constantly. It begins with a reform plan revision, is where we evaluated the remuneration system. One of the incentives was, as we saw in practice, we said that the capital share companies there, they have a lot of work to do. They have not completed all their tasks, and they have some kind of a model of motivation, and it is their way to earn more. And now there is new remuneration system we're constantly looking at, thinking about if the directors of the of such companies, they need some kind of a limitations, state real estate property. They gave them the temporary status because 2 days before adoption of the law, Ministry of Finance, high officials, shouldn't be like that. Yes, it shouldn't be because there are many tasks for one another. And in Riga, for example, where in Riga City Council, Latvia's Dzelzceļš officials or Latvia Railroad officials are being interviewed. Is it really that good that they can solve everything in Riga, that they're actually getting such permission? Thank you, but Mr. Tsitskovskis, is there a process ongoing for changes? Yes, we have prepared amendments, and yes, well, let's see what kind of ovations it is going to attract. Let us see. Less than half an hour. Mr. Ašarādens has to go in less than 10 minutes. Just really want to structure this sequence. We have one slide, and then there is misunderstanding. Mr. Ašarādens said me just a moment ago that he said the word, I'm sorry, I have uncertainty. Uncertainty is what I wanted to say, and uncertainty is if the person is planning the strategies, planning the development. Then on top we have the word uncertainty is something that I would really like to understand. This is one very dangerous thing. You have not been given the word. Ilse Zoltner from Luminor. I actually wanted to say a couple of words defending the Ministry of Economics and Mr. Ašarādens and Latvenergo. Latvenergo, they issued the securities. Why? Because they issued these green securities, Ignitis, and then if it wasn't able to, and this is why there is Enefit Green. Latvenergo, everything is fine with them, and also with the attraction of the funding. But what we see that as foreign investors, how we can see, Enefit Ignitis, why are they better? Because they have these objectives, what they need to do, and there is no political or politicized in their management, in their councils. So Latvenergo has this. So, Mr. Ašarādens, what is the goal? And if it is, then let's do task forces, go with the businesses together, what needs to be changed. About the uncertainty, do you have a response? I would like to look into the company represented PricewaterhouseCoopers. We very recently surveyed the company heads, managers, CEOs, their investment environment and business sentiment. We also research in all over the world, globally. The uncertainty is basically what is very high everywhere, because of so many reasons: inflation, energy prices, geopolitical questions. Whereas, if we look at, for example, Latvia companies and their projections and development questions, then we see that Latvian companies, together with Lithuanian and Estonian, 12 and 3-year forecasts, they are very optimistic. I mean, everything that does not influence the things that is out of their control scope, the companies are taking very well and they can adopt. That is why I wanted to say that the uncertainty is actually linked to the fact with what the companies cannot control. That is what is as politicians, under the control of you as politicians. That was the response to Mr. Ašarādens, and now hold the mic and say some last words. On the background, let us show the slide, which we actually knowingly, intentionally, we thought we will show it only in the end with Mr. Professor Sauka. Surveyed companies are planning to invest in Latvia. 4 out of 5 are planning, and only 15% are not planning, and some percent not yet decided. What about the rest? Are they planning? On this background, let us give. Are you giving? And also the question to Mr. Ašarādens: looking at these investment forecasts, we invited ourselves to say, is this really the plan about the investment? It's like, in spite of what is happening, or could it be so that we are all working together and investing equally or similarly in the state management, because that in state administration, because this is the field which investors cannot influence directly. This is your field. You, with your decisions, you can influence that. And this is why we wanted to say that we are continuing investment. 79%, as is said on the slide, they are investing. They're planning to invest in the economy of Latvia. It shouldn't be so that the companies are actually, or businesses are bigger patriots than those sitting in the cabinets of the government. So what was the question? The question is what to do for us to be together on one line, so that it's not a feeling that it's just in spite. A couple of comments. So surprising. Good word. This uncertainty, basically, maybe let us not talk too much or excessively. Rothschild Group is happy with the results. Roche Group came in 150 employees at doctoral level. We were expecting this for a very long time. Government is working with large projects, large companies are coming in. So, but what to do? The question was maybe to try to solve the questions, not everything, just putting it on the table, but let us just pick one and go deeper. For example, labor market. I mean, there's a very difficult, as in the Ministry of Finance, we're now creating the long-term forecasts, and on Thursday I'm going to be in Sejm, in the Parliament. The spiral is starting to give already the negative effect on GDP, 0.9%. We need to sit down all together and, by means of dialogue, Ministry of Economics, try to solve what is available in the third country markets, in European, and we need to go into particularly in one another sector, how we're going to do. These are very complicated questions. For example, in Latvia, can we be elected a professor, have elected professor who does not know Latvian language, who is does not speak Latvian? I mean, this is the question we should change. There are so many, and this is not so easy. Yes, it's just not the brigade of workers. Mr. Ashradens, I understand you need to be going. Thank you very much. Everybody else stays. Mr. Čude, any just possibilities? What can we do together in coalition? Because we see National Union, for example, and Vienotība. Maybe. What are you asking? But no, because Mr. Ashradens just said that already now we have missing workers that are influencing the GDP. That means that we need to increase the productivity of the existing labor market. We have limited resources. We're not, you know, people are laughing. But the company, how actively are you working with the Ukrainian labor force attraction? From those, Madame Zālīte or Mr. Sauka, you wanted to discuss, I think. Well, it's. Can you say examples in Europe where they are taking them? Mr. Sauka, that was a question to the audience. Unfortunately, we cannot hear what Mr. Sauka is saying, if he's saying anything. And then there are various there are students, professors working. I was learning there also in trying to obtain doctorate studies. There are 20 Swedes, just everybody's actually speaking in English because everybody understands this language. I mean, I could mention how through Poland, when the economy was going up and the COVID crisis, there was so much labor coming into Latvia and NATO and the EU country, we couldn't take responsibility for these countries. And if someone fell from the roof, something was slowly showing up. Well, in essence, we are blocking this question about smart migration, intelligent migration. It's not just like, okay, well, let's say intelligent people are coming, but we also need workers. I mean, Rail Baltica and all the other things I can mention, how the companies are actually forced to solve these issues. And we are talking already for 8 years. I will not agree to Mr. Ashradens also, because in this debate, somewhere, we see it has crystallized through that the economy measure, just looking from perspective of some 4 years of some political cycle, but economics go further. It's, well, who is at the wheel? How long can we be talking about it? The only particular thing I just heard, without just some titles of newspapers, is that in Swedish universities you can read lectures in different languages. But is there another particular example? Because if we take, like, for example, labor market in Poland, there are such high requirements for third country workers, but it is in a bigger diaspora, and the mobility is more convenient in a couple of days to simply take workers and let them work in Latvia, but not to perform all the process in Poland to register them in Latvia, actually. Madame Zālīte, may you maybe comment?
I would like to say that we have to differentiate short-term problems from long-term problems with which we need to start thinking about today, because we see how technologies are developing, and we see that we have problems in the structure of our labor force. So in some years, we will have a lot of employees, so that with current qualifications will not be demanded in the labor market. Yes, but we already spoke about the Human Capital Council. Yes, but this is from the Investors Council side. So there are 3 ministries that are creating this working group, and they are discussing, but they are not consulting the business what are the long-term needs. Because to think what to do with education institutional system today, so that in 10 years we are not in the situation that we have too many social sciences masters and we don't need jobs for them, don't have jobs for them. We can't offer anything. But yes, we were talking about data-based decisions. This is our basic task for three coordinating ministries: welfare, education, and Ministry of Economics, to work with data so that in 10 years, where we see that we have, for example, too many low qualified people, we give them opportunity to return to the labor market with qualifications, and also to develop programs for automatization instruments that give them opportunity to pay a higher average salary. That would also raise the interest for other people to work in Latvia. So if we are more productive, we are able to pay more salaries, and so we would solve this issue with newcomers here, because we cannot import here people who don't want to work here. Yes, I agree, but it doesn't solve today's problem. So let us return to the final part. Mrs. Zoldner maybe wants to add something to this topic. What to do? Okay. A little bit reflecting about the public companies. So when we trust if we are involved, if we can participate, and then we also have this real control. So why not allow for people from Latvia, investors, pension funds, to participate in this story, which is attracting capital for financing Green Deal, for example, for financing sustainable investments, and that would solve these issues related to corporate management, and that would move from the theory to the practice. We will have these minority shareholders, local investors who would demand accountability because they had voted with their money. And this is great that already 4 capital these companies have gone through the Bank of Latvia sandbox, and there is an essential, really significant increase, and we have seen this in practice. So this is I wanted to reflect, and just also a short comment about we need to say also good things about, for example, about the system. So in the long term, from 2.8 4 years ago, now we have 3.2. This is a long-term cooperation result, because in several years, and investors remember that the state was able to deal. We remember this insolvency crazy things, and then I remember about these arbitrary courts, and also anti-riderism reform, and then now we have more efficient commercial law, and these long-term investment also reflects increase of trust. And so therefore I would invite all of you who are here, invest in the law enforcement system, give them resource, demand cooperation, and promote professionality. This will also be one of these elements, because for investors it is very important to have this security and safety. But in conclusion, so very important, if we talk about this cooperation and competitiveness, the question, so public procurements in Latvia, when we will switch from procurements where there is only one criteria, the lowest price, when we will start thinking about sustainable procurements, about green procurements, which is only now a couple of percent, innovative procurement 0 point something, or socially responsible procurements also 0 point something percent. This is something that community in Latvia, not only investors but also businessmen in Latvia, they are asking what is happening with this public procurement, when the state will start acting more responsibly, and then our trust would increase. Anyone could answer about public procurement and the criteria and change of priority criteria? The state audit. I would like to reflect a couple of good examples. So you spoke about green mandatory procurement and also social procurement, but we have to understand that the regulations, the rules are created by the company that is organizing it. I totally agree that the low price procurement is destroying entrepreneurship because entrepreneurs are reducing all the costs, also taxes, in order to offer a better price. Okay. I will also let us ask the procurement supervision center. Yes, partially it is right. Actually, if we look at in comparison with Europe, we don't have worse indicators. But since January this year, we have also 4 other priorities that we have to assess in addition to price. So you can imagine what is coming from the commissioning parties, about 1,700, a bit little less. And probably we have a little bit too late with the beginning of this, and then we need to somehow get back on track, but we are moving towards this. We have heard it, we have noticed it, and we are moving, but it won't happen in one day. Other comments concluding this discussion, Mr. Sprinjuks, what to do? I believe this was a very valuable discussion, but I would like to ask to look at this problem from this point that this administration, in last 2 years, we had 2 big things. So administrative territorial reform that was directed from top to bottom. So you were not welcomed to present some arguments, and also COVID. There was a position that we know what to do. Those who did the other way, they died more. For example, Swedes and Estonians, and so we see that if the government is living in this closed bubble, or parties live in this closed bubble, then there is a very high risk that the wrong decisions are made. In order to make right decisions, we need data. So the Excel shows this and that, or there has to be a very open decision-making process. So I believe that if we arrange those 2 things, so data-based decisions and investments in regions and municipalities, and let us look at the data, what is happening there. I can guarantee nobody knows what is happening in our towns, large towns, but we can see it very well in data because visually it looks the opposite. And second is that we need to understand that the government and also the formants, for example, this councils and other work groups, those are the bottlenecks, but we have to create this link to the real life with municipalities, with business, and then those decisions will be of a higher quality. So I believe, therefore, creating regions to be a space where these sectors are linked together with the government, this is critical. This is important to hear opinions of very many sectors, and this is also an opportunity for auditing. Are our assumptions about labor force correct or mistaken? So we need a real test from those who are standing on the ground. And other conclusions through Riga or not Riga. So nobody from talking about investors, investments, didn't compare Latvia investment agency or Riga investment agency. Yeah, I wanted to praise the Riga Tourism Agency. I see that we speak a lot of words about horizontal cooperation, vertical cooperation, but I would like to discuss specific initiatives and specific words, because I am a municipality politician. I am a little bit confused. The Minister of Finance went away and he said that he is expecting data from Riga, but I know that Riga once a quarter provide data about our financial activities, because all our budgets we have to get approved by the ministry. And Riga for a long time has been also in the blacklist due to this political envy, maybe also because in Riga there was a lot of stealing and the government was punishing Riga. And now we see that this momentum has stopped finally, and we can see that there is a cooperation with Riga, and I'm totally sure that Riga Metropole in a wider sense can serve as a magnet for investments. And we have a lot of initiatives, very practical. We want to work together with government. For example, one stop agency, we have already the first large investor who has come to Riga. We cannot reveal names, but we are also having fingers crossed for another one to come in, and they are facing the same issue that the Ministry of Economics do not hear about attraction of labor force. They want to take their employees from their factory who could come to Riga and train our Latvians to work and how to do it. And in this way, we would have this transfer of education. So if they come, we will hear it from them. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tsitskovskis. Do you have anything to add? Something that was said and was not said. So what about the possibility to improve those indexes in reality and also sentiments? One practical thing besides what was mentioned in plans for the public officials, we have to have a mechanism so that we easier and faster get to the decision makers, because very often we have this football between public officials and also politicians, because if entrepreneurs want to see that we are dynamic and we are able to work fast, so we need to speed up this process. So how we send the document to the politicians on the table to make a decision. And the last, what would you say about from the state audit? I would like to speak about the data, because in the beginning I didn't have this opportunity, because besides lack of cooperation, we also conclude after our audits that there is a lack of data. And I wouldn't say that lack of data, we have data, but we lack activities with data. We don't analyze, and we also don't learn from these analyses, because in general we have data, and you have those data, you have those budgets. You don't need 500 pages in PDF, but there are accounts and there are codes, and you can analyze this data and make decisions already based on those data. And one more thing I would like to say is that this tradition of data analysis has to be started, because very often we feel as a state audit when we do inspections and look what happened, for example, about COVID money, support for entrepreneurs, and other things we have summarized, but we are already in the 21st century, the third decade, and we don't need to ask data using the surveys, but we still see this, that it happens between one or another institution. And so we use the term database decisions, and very often we think that it's going to be a miracle. We just put data and one formula and the decision would come. No, it's going to be decision anyway. And we will be looking at our main priorities and directions. And today we also spoke about leveling off finances. For example, if we look at the recommendations by the Council of Europe, then they are saying that the first is the political decision about solidarity level, and then we create formulas and put data and so on. So we cannot avoid it. So the first one is the political decision. So let us conclude this, and let us hope that Professor Sauka in a year will say maybe that you get a better mark, not F level, but maybe a bit better than F. So the final word. Yes, this was a very, very hot discussion, and I just a very, very short thesis. So how I saw what happened, and that is going to be also the introduction for the next discussion. So first of all, that you started discussing the word sentiments, but as an entrepreneur, I could say that what today is sentiment, tomorrow is going to be data. So therefore, the Bank of Latvia make it and consider it serious and don't ignore it. Next is existence of data. I agree to this state audit. One example is that in state research program, we were researching the shadow economy for 230,000, which is taxpayer money. Don't say that there is nothing you that you can't use anything for reducing shadow economy. And soon I will present about the presentation about data piracy. And so we have data, but nothing much is done with them. Third thesis is that it is important for investors. It is very important to increase qualification, and there has to be investments in higher educational institutions. But still, we are discussing about 1-2 billion about digitalization, but nothing is moving forward. Number 4, about words and deeds. We spoke about energy independency. Who are we selling our gas infrastructure to? And we are not giving the state guarantees. So there are some words what we want to speak, but then again we don't do, and then we wonder why other countries are ahead of us. And the last one about the labor force. The last, if we are moving towards that the quantity is enough, I don't agree, but if we would assume it and we would improve quality, then for one international organization, I was doing a research about costs of labor training and also the processes for large, medium and small companies in order to increase productivity. And we wanted to get various data, and we looked at how to get those data, and about 16 associations participated. And from the ministry, we got an answer: we have no data about previous research, but we had invested thousands and millions of them. So please don't give us answer that the person who worked with this project now is fired, and then we don't know anything what happened to this. Okay, thank you very much to our researcher. Thank you very much to those who watched online and who watched in person. Thank you to those who asked and expressed opinions, and also those who answered and expressed opinions from the side of politicians and also entrepreneurs. Thank you to the Foreign Investors Council who is organizing this, and let us see you in a year in the same format. Thank you.